What's up, everybody? Department of Sound students, what's going on? I'm Greg. I'm one of the program developers. Today we have a really, really special guest, an old friend of mine, an incredible musician, singer, songwriter, engineer, percussionist, producer, entrepreneur. Um, Brooklyn, Brooklyn born and raised, incredible musician that we're having on today. And we're going to interview him today and talk about his career and talk about what it's like, working in the music industry and writing music from scratch and collabing and all those good things. So everybody give a round of applause for Johnny Burgos. What's up, everyone?
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Got it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm glad
John.
we're recording this because that intro was amazing. I'm gonna have to save that.
Was it? Hopefully it'll get smoother next time, I promise. Cool. So this is really fun for me because I've had the honor to work with Johnny in the last couple of years on a few tracks, and we've made some music together. And he's a really inspiring dude who, music came into his life at a particular time, and it's really put a lot of light into his life from our conversation. So I think this is kind of a cool conversation point. Like, how did you get started in like knowing that you wanted to do music or actually like knowing that you wanted to make a career out of it?
For me, it started to be something I was taking more serious when I realized that a lot of the things in life I was trying were not really working out. And because I just wasn't getting something that I wanted. I didn't know what it was, but I wasn't getting something that I wanted. It wasn't fulfilling for me. All the things I was doing, even if they were rewarding monetarily, I couldn't escape. Like when they say it chooses you, you don't choose it. Like it was something that I thought about, from the moment I opened my eyes in the morning. It was a thought all day, and then it was the last thing I thought about before I went to sleep, and then I dreamed about it. So it was just like it wouldn't leave me alone.
Wow.
And and then it just I just kind of found a way. That passion is it's what still feeds me, what still drives me, even though there's been a few years in the industry now. It's just it keeps me going.
Yeah, man. I mean, so like from what I remember, you had some folks in your family too that played music as well and played in bands. And did you get to spend time around that like a lot, or was it like here and there? Like
totally. I mean, it was mixed. Sorry to cut you off. It was mixed. I was around. My uncle was a world-class percussionist, Andre Martinez, and he played with all the the salsa greats, all the Latin greats, also jazz. Like he played jazz kit and percussion for Cecil Taylor, who's a jazz legend for years. And he toured the world with all these guys. And when he was local, when he was around, of course, I was always around it. He was the husband of my mother's closest sister, so we were always there. So even in the house, there were just congas everywhere. There were just percussion instruments everywhere. So if there was music on, he was already playing to it, and I was just watching and enamored by that. And then as I, became braver in my, I guess 10, 11-year-old type of years, there was a moment where I just walked up to one of the congas while he was playing and started playing myself. And I just remember him flipping out, like, oh my God, like he has it. And I just did something right. And I was, from then on, like I got a little bit of praise, and I was just like, oh man, I love this. And then really diving into just copying him. Really, we never really sat down and had formal lessons, but I just watched so much and picked up so much, even developed my own weird style. Like I play like in a funky way that is not like a traditional way, but it works for me. And he was the one who told me, he's like, listen, if it works, then don't change it, just learn as much as you can in that
Yeah.
way. But and then he got me on like some pickup gigs when we were local, and he'd be like, all right, like I guess like the young dude in the percussion world always gets put on the bongos, so you play the bongos, and or like cowbell, and then you kind of like auxiliary, you just bounce around. And then I started getting called back for the gig, like, hey, bring your nephew, man, bring your nephew. And then it became a thing for me. I was like a percussionist for a while, which was awesome, and I learned so much. And just seeing him do that, seeing him like build a life from that, And there was, there's always tricky points, but seeing him and what he got from playing for people and with people and from music and making that his life and finding sustainability through that was just like kind of mind blowing for me. So then I was just like, all right, I need to do my own version of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, Department of Sound, we have a lot of different types of students from different backgrounds, and some families have musicians in their family already, and some families don't, or maybe like you might be, and some of you students out there, you might be some of the first musicians in your family, but that's cool. That's okay. That's how it starts. And also, like, I remember, to your point as well, like when I had that experience too of like meeting someone who is a professional musician and seeing how much enjoyment they got out of performing or playing or making it, it really opened up my world to like, wow, like this is possible. Like, how do you, I want to participate in that. And so, thanks for telling that story. That's super special.
No doubt, man.
So yeah. So Johnny, you do all different types of things in the music industry. I mean, you started off playing percussion.
Mm-hmm.
You have some crazy pipes. You can sing your butt off, which is awesome. That's like a whole other thing. And then you're a great producer and you're also an engineer. Like, what happened after the percussion? Was it getting into singing, or was it into getting into the studio, or how did that work?
Well, I mean, the percussion, what was cool is that the percussion like really got me into rhythm a lot. And I was really obsessed with rhythm. And of course, the rhythms I was playing, like salsa and Latin stuff. But then, I started to notice how a lot of those things were used in like percussion on like soul and funk tracks. And then I got really into soul and funk, and then realized while I was into these older joints, like I was hearing them being sampled in the hip hop of that era of my life. And then I got obsessed. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And then I got obsessed with beat making. And then I found out that, of course, through the percussion, I had a knack for like programming drums. So I randomly met my homie, shout out to Skiz, DJ Skiz, and through like a Craigslist like roommate situation. And then I realized he had like a little MPC setup, which I had some time on before on another friend's like home studio setup. And I heard him just making stuff, and I was like, yo, can I sit in and watch and stuff like that? And then I would just hear things that he was doing, because he had a great ear for samples and chopping and stuff, but like his rhythm was like is what he lacked on. And I'd be like, yo, can I just like hear something? And I'd program some shit, and he'd be like, dude, that is crazy. Mm-hmm. So then he was like my link to like Mobb Deep and MOP, and he was such a hub for this really rich era New York hip hop, because he was working on the NYU halftime show with DJ Eclipse and DJ Riz and Petey Cologne, who are still all my homies to this day. Mm-hmm. And so then it just led to us like working on joints, and then me being the kid who no one really knew, because I was still young then, who like programmed all the drums. And then I kind of got a rep for like, yo, like we want something like this. They'd pull up like a drum loop, be like, yo, we want something like this under this beat, but change it a little bit so we don't have to clear it, so then I'd be copying, just banging out drum patterns in a session where like Mobb Deep and MOP, and it was just a wild experience. And unfortunately, like I was so young and naive, I didn't get a lot of credit for that stuff, but it was just an amazing experience.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah.
We have a question.
Sure.
I guess I put this. Oh, wait, sorry about that. The question is, sorry about that. What DAW do you use?
What DAW do I use?
From Pink G.
I mainly use Pro Tools because I also engineer, so I like to have almost everything right there, in one situation. So I've gotten pretty efficient with MIDI in Pro Tools, although I know people do not like that situation. And I'm trying. Actually, I watch Greg a lot. Greg uses Ableton a lot. He's really, really, really dope in it. I'm trying to learn some more. I have a lot of connections with Universal Audio, so they definitely threw me the Luna package. So I think I'm gonna jump into that next. And I've been opening it and exploring it a little bit. My engineer exclusively uses Luna now, and we've been like co-mixing together remotely. He actually works for Universal Audio as well.
Oh, wow.
So we've been doing remote mixes where like I see he screen shares, and then we do sound movers. So I have the direct audio. And so I'm learning as I watch it too. So it's pretty interesting. But mainly right now is Pro Tools. I'm really efficient in it, and I can also like tweak sonically the way I really want to, and almost like make final touches as I go. So
That's cool. That's what's up. So, we have a lot of students. So we use we have a software that we use with Department of Sound called Soundtrap, which is a Spotify program right now. And so it's pretty cool. There's a lot of beat making happening in the program. And so what is your advice for, our students that are trying to recreate maybe some sounds or some artists that they like, maybe the types of styles of beats? Like what do you kind of start with? Do you start with like a kick drum or like a snare drum, or like how does that process start for if you're trying to like make a beat?
I mean, I'm a little all over the place. Sometimes I start with a melody because I'm also like a singer and artist too. So sometimes I'm more melody driven, and I have this idea in my head that it's like an earworm. And then I figure out how I like the melody sounding the most, like tempo wise, pitch wise, but really tempo wise, because then it predicts where I'm going with the beat. But in terms of like production, it's it depends. Sometimes it's the same thing. It's like sometimes it's chords, sometimes it's drums. But when I do start like a drum sequence, I usually do start with just kick and snare.
Got it.
And also like in terms of like, you're always going to be referencing something that is relevant to you, something that you liked. And I can say is I always use that as a framework and never like the end destination. You know what I mean? You start from there, but you always want to put your originality on it, your own twist on it. Like never let the goal be sounding just like that. Always have your own thing and trust that. It's a hard process because there's a lot of fear and risk involved sometimes, but you have to trust your passion for this and that you have something to say in your own way, because that's what's going to make you stand out too.
Yeah, I love that. I just for all the listeners out there, DOS students, I also just saw this interview with Kevin Parker, the producer for Tame Impala, and he said this thing that I thought was pretty cool. It's similar to what you're saying. It's like every time he puts himself out there, like maybe it's something no one's ever heard before and it's super vulnerable and it's like this beat that you worked on and you don't know if anybody else is going to like it, but you like it. He says every time he's done that, in the long, like overall, it's done a lot of good for his life. where he's just saying like, if it's you, it's cool. You know what I mean? Like as long as you like it, that's all that matters. It really doesn't matter. Like if your friends like it or if your parents like it, as long as you love it, like it's going to make an impact somehow and that's like such a, that's a big part of making music, I think, is like
100%.
That's not easy. That's not easy to do.
It's so not. I mean, it's always the balance of that. That's what you are learning. I think that's what we're students of, learning how to, keep a certain amount of honesty and vulnerability in our stuff, and of course in current in ways. But I had a chance to speak to some of my heroes before, and one of them told me that it was Q-Tip. He was just like, man, if it ain't you, it's they're gonna know that, and like there's so many subtleties that we forget happen. It's like there's just so much translated even in the experience that you're having in making it. So when it's you and it's really vulnerable and it feels great and it's honest, you're in a zone, you're in a flow when you're making that is so special that people can actually feel. It's primal, It's a human thing, and they know when it's real and they know when it's not.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think that's important, students. So as you continue to make stuff, like that's a great piece of advice, Johnny. It's like you're gonna come up with your own style. You're gonna come up with your own style, and it's like no one else is gonna have it if you keep working on your craft. So keep on doing your thing, and the right people are gonna find you. So, okay, cool. So we did the beat making thing. You talked about, your percussion career. You talked about some of these amazing mentors. I mean, Q-Tip's, he's a legend in New York City. He's a legend all over the world. Um, Talk about that. Let's talk about, like, as you're kind of making your craft, like, I think one thing I've been finding, because as I'm a music producer as well, is like whenever I work with someone else, I end up learning all this new stuff. Like whenever you and I work together, I learn all this stuff because your approach to what I would do is different. And then you might learn some things from me because I do something differently. So like, how do you, like, do you try to collaborate a lot, or like, do you try to spend your own time and then collaborate? Like, how does that work?
I mean, I go back and forth. I think, I listen to life a lot. So like I have moments where like I'm really itching and I get moments where like I'm bored with myself, with my own abilities. And that I know that there needs to be growth. Like I'm itching for growth. And I think collaboration is a really, really good way to grow. But sometimes you can, like, if it's forced, I've been in situations in like publishing deals and they're like, they're just trying to pump content out of you, and you're meeting with, sometimes you're doing 2 sessions a day with 2 different artists or other people, and it's just hard. It doesn't always flow. But when you're doing it in like you when you and I work, it's always just like a flow. We're kind of we're not on the exact same wave, but we have, a similar approach and a similar goal to something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it works well. And I think it's a combination of knowing yourself, knowing where you are, your comfortability with that, knowing who you're going to work with, and then also just being open. You got to be open to the growth. You got to get used to growth, and almost be excited for it. Be excited for something sometimes to be challenging and almost seem like they suck, because that's like a hint that you about to grow in a way and be better at something that, and in a few months or a year.
Let's talk about that, because I hit a snag this morning on this song I've been writing. I woke up and I started writing this thing, and then like I hit like a roadblock, like a mental, because there's students, like, there's mental roadblocks. You might make something, then you're like, this isn't sounding the way I want it to sound. Or maybe, you thought you had this thing, and then you, like, 5 minutes later, you're like, I wish I could do this, but I don't know how to do that. Like, how do you deal with those moments?
I mean, sometimes I work myself into the ground. Sometimes I just try to figure it out. I can't let it go. A lot of times lately, I've been better at, like, you know what? It just needs time. I don't have it yet, and sometimes I'll like research the things or really look into it. Or sometimes I'm, one of the best things is like actually what I just did with you a few days ago. It's like, I've been sitting with this one song and I think it's a great idea. And I'm like, oh, Greg would kill this. Let me send this to him, so it's just, it's knowing when to open that up. And,
would you say it's like like
100% perspective
like
thing.
the perspective change? And it's like, I got this one piece of advice recently that was pretty cool that's related to this. Like, a lot of times our brains are constantly, for students out there, our brains are constantly moving and solving problems even when we're not thinking about them. So sometimes, like, you could take a walk and come back to it, and you're like you're listening to your song on Soundtrap in like a fresh new perspective. Or sometimes you can have a friend take a listen to it and be like, oh, why don't you just take the hi-hats out and see how it sounds, So it's like there's all kinds of perspective changes that can help you kind of like move to the next step, I feel like.
No, that's totally key. It's just like someone always, because we're humans and we're all like super different in our approach to everything. Even if it isn't like the same genre or style, it's like we hear things differently. Our experience is different. It's individual. So that is such a blessing sometimes, because you learn something that could become like your trick. You're like, oh shit, like I didn't even think about leaving the hi-hats out, and now it's like a whole different groove. So then when they come back in, it's just like, oh man, it's just a banger now. You know what I mean? And it's just a matter of simple things like that sometimes. Also, like knowing, a lot of times I think me and you feed well off each other, because when I do something or you do something, it's like we can hear where the space needs to be. And, you know, we're insecure when we're doing it, so we're overdoing it sometimes, and we're filling in too much space. And it's like, actually, no, let that breathe a little bit right there. That's what that needs, space.
Yeah.
But also that too, space is key. Always, like, if you're trying to really figure something out and it's just, you can't get to something, more than likely there's too much going on. And if you pull some stuff back, it's always like, even for me, when I have beats, especially beats alone, I'm just like pitching them to artists or sending stuff out. It's like, I did too much. And before, like, I send it out, I always have a listen through, and I'm like, what do I need to pull out? Especially like in certain sections, make it more dynamic, make it grow into the chorus part or into some other, you know, just give it life up and down and like a feel.
Experience. I like that. Yeah, that's cool. So, so what's it? So does it get? What's your approach to like songwriting? Like, do you? Actually, you know what? How do you study songwriting? How do you study songwriting?
I mean,
like singing, songwriting, singing, performing, that kind of thing.
I mean, the most obvious way is just staying. I stay really informed in what I listen to, you know, and especially if like I find new artists or like even just older stuff that I haven't heard before, like I'll go down a rabbit hole of their catalog, and see what they're about. Watch how they progressed. You know, hear the things they were talking about in different moments and movements in the world. Of course, watch videos. I mean, I can go hours sometimes, go hours just watching my favorite, you know, people just entertain and how they hold the space of the stage. You know, it's like, it really is, you know, as I've learned over the years performing stuff, it's an emotional exchange. Even if it's like the most ratchet trap music, it's an emotional exchange between you and that audience. And, you know, and they're there to feel something. Like it's, you know, music, especially right now, I think is a very much in a form of escapism, you know, and people want to be taken somewhere. And especially that live show is the epitome of that, you know, platform to do that for them.
Yeah.
But
I like that.
Yeah, it's just it is. That's what it is, you know. But
what would say like? No, I mean, no, I like that. So it's like, it's kind of like understanding. Sorry, I got some crazy thunder over here. I'm outside of Philly for we got Johnny's in. Oh, by the way, Johnny's in Brooklyn. Are you in Bushwick? Right, you're in Bushwick.
Yeah, Bushwick.
And Jess, where are you?
I live in New York City, but currently I'm at my parents' house in Jersey, Central Jersey.
Awesome. We're on the East Coast. There's probably some thunderstorms coming your way, by the way. So I got it first. Yeah. So to play off of that, Johnny. So it's like, you know, like the production, like the beat, and the song, and the singer. Like what we're trying to make when we make music is like we're trying to, like you said, build an emotional exchange, or build like a world where someone, when they listen to it, they're like overwhelmed by it, and they can probably see their own pictures in their head. And so that's a really interesting point, because sometimes you'll hear music that sometimes like you're probably not vibing with it because things are kind of fighting each other. You know what I mean? Like maybe the song, maybe there's like a lot of vocals and the drums are like too quiet, or they're not playing with each other. So it doesn't feel like one thing, where in essence, what you're saying is like, you know, it's an emotional exchange. So the whole setting is like, boom, I'm in this whole new world now.
Totally. I mean, that's a big thing where like I get clients sometimes too, who like, you know, when I work with client stuff, or like I'm writing or vocal producing something, and they just get like beats sent to them, or just like stems, and they're like, well, why do we even need the stems? Like, well, because we need to tell this story. We need to create this dynamic and, you know, weave the beat and elements of the beat and your vocal in and out of each other. So if you just have a 2-track beat and you have no control over all those elements, you know, you can't really do that. And sometimes you have to make the best of it, and there's tricks, but it'll never be as good as like when you have all the stems and you can manipulate every single thing and make it all one, you make it mesh, like you said, and make it all like speak to the audience collectively.
Yep. And just to clarify for all the students, so what stems really are if you have a kick drum track, you have a snare track, you have a hi-hat track, maybe you have a keyboard track, that's 4 tracks. And so when you make a song and you want to adjust the levels, that's like adjusting the stem. So you adjust the snare stem to make it louder or softer, or you can mute it. And so that's what Johnny means by stems. That's terminology for producers and engineers when we want to finish a song after it comes out of their Soundtrap or Pro Tools or Logic or anything like that. That's super cool. How do you know a song's done? That's like the hardest question. Sorry, I put that.
I mean, you don't. You gotta. You. That's part of that vulnerability. You build up that courage to be like, all right, this is, it meets most of the marks. I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes you're like, damn, this is it. This is a banger. And that's rare though. But I also have like,
you're saying that's rare. Wait, you're saying that's rare. You're saying you're saying that most of the time
for me, yeah.
Well, I think it's for a lot of people to be honest.
I do too, but
all the greats, but I think that's an important thing for the students to hear is like, I think anything worth making is kind of hard. Like, you know what I mean? Is like, meaning like it might be a little bit of struggle to get it done, but well, you said something really heavy like a couple of minutes ago. We were like, what did you say? You said that if it's difficult, that means there's something in there that's worth getting to.
Yeah. Right? I mean, nothing of real value, of real, that something that's going to fulfill you in a real way, of real purpose, is going to be easy. That is just, and I've lived a lot of life. I've been through a lot of shit. It's just not how it is. Life, and as long as you embrace struggle, I've some of it was, I could have done without, but I've had to embrace a lot of struggle in my life. But it teaches you so much, and also that like it's part of life. You can't have good times without bad times, and like they lose their context without each other. So in that, I also found that when something is challenging, it doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it also means that there is, knowing that, you're not going to stop. This is what you want to do, that there's growth behind this. There's some real growth that is going to come out of this no matter what. So seeing it through is really important for me. But in terms of like finishing a song, that's always a point of growth for me, where like I am freaking out. And then usually one of my last steps is like sending it out to my network, cats like you that I trust and taste, and like, my team. This is part of why you have like a team and a circle of people you trust, that their taste, where they're coming from with their feedback, to be like, hey, like, I think I'm done with this. What do you think? And, you get to the point most of the time, almost like 99% of the time now, when I do that, people are like, dude, this is bonkers. I can't wait for you to put it out. So, and that's what, 7-8 years in the making now, but, and then still there's some times where you're like, yeah, I think you could do this, or I think this could be cooler, or like maybe this could do this here, but like, and then, I'm always open to that. That's another thing, like that process has taught me a lot, like opening up to feedback, but also like learning how to pick that network that I'm going to feedback for, knowing those people's tastes, knowing where they're coming from. It's hard because, I want to trust family and friends and like people close to you, but there's an inherent bias that is hard for you to always trust, because they're just proud of you, and they're even like, genuinely amazed that you've accomplished that and you finished something and you have a product to show them sometimes. So it's not always the best mark for like knowing that, but you have to build that too. It takes time to build that network of really trusted people who have great ears and the taste that you're looking for feedback.
That's awesome. No, that makes a lot of sense. What are you working on now?
I am in the midst of finishing a full record, finally. And I think I got one more left to do. It's actually a rewrite. I want to rewrite some of it. I'm going back in on it. But there's about, I think we pulled about 13 or 14 songs out of a lot that I'm ready to go on. And yeah, I got a great situation lined up, and I'm still looking for more situations for it. And one of them is one we worked on together, which I'm really excited for. Yeah, so.
Well, I wanted to play one of your songs, "Creepin'."
Yeah, let's do it.
For all the students. I'm gonna turn it up for them right now. All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about it. Okay.
It's almost like I'm someone else, living in some other.
You guys hear it?
Now I found my way. Even what I'm here to find. Think it's an attempt to tame this peace that wakes in me sometimes. Yeah. You don't you these lies I tell you as much as I need to go. I am my creeping, I'm here all alone. What am I seeking? I don't get at home. Why am I creeping? I'm here all alone. What am I seeking? I don't get at home. I will see this from the side. My eyes have never lied to me. Never fed into my pride. Forget what they desire from me. I know we've been through this before, and that you always find a way. Back in my life through secret doors, I try not to throw the keys away. You won't be you give these lies, I give these lies as much as I need to go.
Chorus two.
Now you're my creeping, I'm here all alone.
Bass is nasty on this.
Yeah.
I don't get at home. Now you're my creeping, I'm here all alone. What am I seeking? I don't get at home. I ain't even about this night. I can't stand to see you cry that way again. You just want me for the night to help you make it feel alright. Don't you pretend. No. You ain't my friend. No, no. You won't be you give these lies I tell you as much as I need to know right now. Why am I creeping? I'm here all alone. I'm here.
Awesome, dude. Yo, this is sick track. I mean, the instrumentals in this song are incredible.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Everything about this song is top notch. I mean, like, I don't know. The drums are great. The bass is great. The chords. How did you come up with the chords? Because the chords sound like sort of like a keyboard thing, but like a sound design thing too.
Well, yeah, it's a patch in Omnisphere. It's this patch I love. It's like a electronic. It's like a synth organ. So it's a mix of like I think some Juno like pad and organ. It's just really vibey, and it has like a little bit of like lo-fi noise on it. Yeah, those chords actually took me forever.
And I see.
It's very churchy, like church type stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. Super cool. And the bass, that's a nice bass.
The bass line is actually my boy Devon. We call him Day Day. Devon Denegaw. He's really young dope producer, but incredible bassist that I've gotten a chance to play with a lot. He's once I, you know, come out in a live capacity, he would definitely be the bass player of that band. But he's a monster, man. He's a monster. He killed that.
Yeah. How long did it take you to make that song?
Actually, we knocked that instrumental out probably in like a few days, maybe like a day or two.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I program drums really quickly. I mean, drums come to me the quickest, and I have the patterns down, and I have my libraries really organized well. So like I kind of know 'em like a nut. Like it's just like, oh, I know exactly where that hi-hat roll thing or something. So I just pull stuff in battery a lot and just go from there. But if you listen, it's not that complicated. And then there's, you know, the keys are pretty repetitive. There's some like atmospheric stuff that I did with atmosphere in there that make it build and things like that. And then just a lot of vocal samples that I made. I sung and then just messed with them and like tuning and lo-fi them and stuff like that, like with filters. And, yeah. And then I got my boy Keenan to play guitar on it as well. He's down in New Orleans, but we always just do remote sessions like this.
Oh, it looks like there's some hail. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, so intense times. But man, this is so great for having you on here and talking about your experience in music. Guys, if you get a chance, check out Johnny Burgos' music on Spotify, Apple, all the platforms, YouTube, of course, as well. We're excited to have you on here. And
thank you so much.
I'll be back soon.
Yeah, man, I'm down. Always. I love informing the future, helping the future, man. Because we need good music in the future. We need you guys.
We need you guys. Thanks, guys, for everyone signing on. This was super special. And you'll be able to see this video going forward, too, in our Department of Sound video section soon. Anything else, Jess?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, so happy to have you on, Johnny, and we're going to be really excited, like, uploading this and just sharing the content for, you know, our students as well as, like, our followers to see. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
No problem. I'd love to be involved. I mean, I actually do a lot of stuff on my own, too, with, like, you know, performing arts programs locally and stuff like that, but I'm always down to be of assistance.
Okay, that's awesome. Would love to have you like participate with us sometime in the future too.
Yeah.
And thanks, Greg, for hosting, obviously, and looping in Johnny. Appreciate that.
Of course,
yeah,
my pleasure.
I'm glad we can make it happen.
All right, guys. You have a good day.
All right, you too. Peace.
Awesome. See you, everybody.